started here.
Yeah, so that.
Something like that. Welcome to the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting. This is 1 p.m. Monday, October 27th. First item is citizen input for somebody that is not on the agenda. Citizen input. Anybody with the raised hand feature? Do. Not seeing it. Okay, good. So commissioner announcements, anything? Empty bowls yesterday.
Okay.
Oh yeah, tell us about the bird.
Oh my gosh, I found the ranch with coordinates on my phone. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, it was a 24,000 acre ranch where they were doing the burn bot demonstration. And it ends up that the county has already used this program. The city used it for cleaning up the junipers on the backside of Sutera. Remember all those houses? We paid $8.50 an acre. The work that they do, the people from Versada were there checking out the work because they use rubberized tracks, and that this robot operated machine, they have several sizes, can do the work of a 20-man hand crew, 10 times the work of a 20-man hand crew. So the possibilities were unbelievable. What they did up on pretty level ground, they can clear about 5 acres if the ground is relatively level. So it was an amazing demonstration, and really glad that we're already using it. They're taking it out to Fire. They're working some projects on Indian Ford, but I was really glad that I got to see it
So
firsthand.
it's kind of like a burning tunnel
No,
machine that rolls.
It doesn't burn. It actually, it digests everything. So you don't want to stand behind it, but it's teeny pieces.
Masticating everything.
Yes, masticating. I mean, so teeny. You don't.
But I thought it was burning.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking. That's the name of the company, but
Yeah, so it's
yeah, they have
Rural
different things that they do, but
service,
the
yeah.
one I saw was actually just, they took like a small
yeah.
stand of pine trees. I'm looking and I turn around and then I'm looking again and
Gone.
like the 6 pine trees are like, they're all gone. But you don't want to stand in front or behind. Yeah, amazing technology. Use that, use the goats. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a lot of things that we can do here that really will make a difference. And it was really nice to know. They also use this program to Deschutes River Woods next to the railroad tracks. It's a crew of 5, and because,
Yeah, and I saw those.
yeah, you saw them there
Remote
working,
control.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
I
they
did
do
see
an
those, yeah.
amazing job. So, no, really, I was so happy that I was able to get the directions right.
Did they give any kind of costs information, like cost per acre?
It was $850 of what we paid on the contract for the work we had done.
Anchor.
Yeah, it was $850 an acre, but I'm thinking, I told them, okay, we just got the 5.2 million for 7 counties. And at that price, we could actually do over 6,000 acres, but that would be cleaning everything up. And honestly, you want to leave maybe, 4 juniper per acre just to
Yes. No pattern.
give some kind of shelter for wildlife, but otherwise amazing work. So yeah, that was the price. Check with Angie. Thank you, Angie, for pulling up that contract for me. So yeah,
Yeah.
815 acres. So what would that hand crew cost? I know a hand crew costs, I think isn't it like 22,000 a day or something, the fire crews? So I don't know what a regular hand crew price is, but I just thought amazing work. Hardly could see a disruption on the soil, the rubber tracks. So, and
If it's a masticating machine, then maybe the right thing to compare it to would be like a ride-on masticator versus hand crews. Because hand crews can limb trees and do things like that too.
right, but this was, what they have a lot of, black moss hanging. And so on the other side of the street, which was a different company, they would cut the trees down to the ground. They've got them captured in the apparatus, and then they move them over and stack them. But they're trying to give at least 25 feet between the evergreen trees, because according to what I was told by the experts, the black moss will actually go away if they have enough sunlight on them. So they were doing that across the dirt road that I followed up the mountain. Yeah, it was quite a drive. And the people it's a private investor that bought the ranch in 2021, and he's really working on sustainability.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Melvin.
Oh.
Barely got here on time.
All right,
Oh, and I did go by Sleep in Heavenly Peace because this was moved indoors to the coastal building at the fairgrounds. So I just wanted to be sure Saturday morning that it was a smooth transition. And I don't know if anyone in the room knows what Sleep in Heavenly Peace is. They build twin beds, they do all the bedding, everything. Well, their fundraising has been significantly impacted this year. And so if you can go to their website and help them with their program, they were building 25 beds on Saturday and they really, at least the dust was really down because it was indoors, but, they really have a greater need. And that, Joe, Joe Myers, who runs is the director, they're actually gonna go over to Burns and do some projects over there because remember Burns had that terrible flooding. And so, I thought that was really a great choice that he's making to help with this side of the mountain. So anyway, Sleep in Heavenly Peace, if you have any contact to help them, great people. I believe they are going to have a couple more builds before year end.
yeah, I heard about that also. I wasn't in a good spot to get there and go see it this weekend, but I heard about it, so good for them.
Yeah, no, and they actually said the county, were in, in between their directors, that it worked out really nice. So they were incredibly appreciative.
Okay, so item number one, approval of a document for a contract for security services. So I know that it could have been on the consent agenda, but this is kind of our Monday afternoon meeting, which we usually don't have a consent, so
Yep.
let's go right into this today.
Yeah, well, we are just looking to continue actually our contract with Trident, who has been our security contract since 2024 at the stabilization center. We hit some insurance hiccups in executing the contract a little bit earlier, so that's why we are seeking approval now.
Yeah, so
So do you know what we paid last time?
I don't have that on me. I know that the increase was not as much as I had anticipated per hour.
So it said a maximum of 252,000. I had to go back in the contract and find that number. So maximum is that. But I do notice, because I do drive by you guys like almost every morning.
Yeah.
If I come by Empire, and it said that they will routinely walking premises both indoors and outdoors. Do they ever really walk outdoors?
Yep,
I've
they
never
go,
seen them.
they pull all of our car doors too, to make sure our county vehicles are locked that are.
Oh, okay, make sure, you guys aren't behind the lock gates then?
We have some cars parked behind the lock gates and then we have some that are out in the parking lot. Right north of the main customer parking lot, cause we
Right.
park in that, yeah,
You park in that lot then?
yeah. in between
So
the
they're
sheriff
checking to
lots.
make sure you actually remember to lock your
Lock our
door? Yeah.
vehicles, yes.
Cause a lot of people forget, right?
Yep.
I know, press the button. So anyway, well, yeah, cause I usually drive by there and I just wondered, so they really are outside then?
Yep, and it's about once an hour. They also, if need be, will like at a clinician's discretion be posted somewhere in the building if we have like a need for them to stand in the lobby with us with an escalated client. So pretty open to our direction.
Okay, and it is 24/7, correct?
We've scaled back during our day hours. We haven't found a need for security with
Good.
all of our administration team there, myself there. But it's really our night staffing that and after hours. So after 3 PM during the weekdays, weekends and evenings.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, you guys seem like you're in a pretty safe spot, relatively speaking, right?
Relatively.
Someone can be there quickly, if they need to.
3 PM till
3 PM till 7 AM the next morning.
Great.
So yeah, it's a motion.
I had some more questions.
Yeah.
So what kind of security issues have we experienced that it's helpful to have Trident there?
Yeah, we've had a handful over the years, like not at a level of frequency that has me too terribly concerned. This year, though, we did have an individual kick in one of our doors that was a badge door with some force. And so having them on site to be able to monitor that, help support our staff in that situation and contact 911 was very helpful. It's also a part of our minimum staffing model. So when people call out, having security on site to just be able to watch what's happening in the building in those 3 AM moments when we've got 4 people in respite can be really helpful.
So that's why I haven't seen anybody, because usually I would be going by at 6:30 AM. So I do that once in a while, but anyway, yeah, usually a bit later than 7
So
AM,
that would
so that
extend
would
it.
be why I wouldn't see anyone.
Yep.
Perfect sense.
I guess one other question, so, we, in prior years, we have had a financial contribution from the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office. We don't have that anymore, or at least, you know, not this fiscal year, and I would guess it's gonna be challenging to do that in the next fiscal year. Are there ways that, you know, sheriff's deputies could just kind of build it into their, I'm on my way out, I'm on my way in, you know, do a lap around, get out, walk around once. That could help reduce the amount of hours that we need to use Trident for.
Potentially, I could see that. I haven't given that a thought yet, but that'd be worth a conversation. I also know it's been challenging for them at times to add to that.
Always
Yeah,
enjoy
I
it.
join.
Yeah.
Hi.
Deputies are a sunk cost, right? It's not.
They, you know, I think there's the difference between plainclothes security that we have at the stabilization center versus having an armed deputy. That the optics of it just are different for our clientele, and so I think we prefer to have security there for
Right.
those reasons.
Right.
I just think it sets the tone that we want there. If we needed to depend on our law enforcement officers for a response, we are more than happy to do that and grateful. But having them there as kind of a regular rotation
Right,
might discourage some people from using our facility.
right. And so Trident, when they're there, when they're out walking around, do they plain clothes?
Yeah, well, they're in, like, they're not law enforcement looking. They have, I mean, it's identified that they're security, but it's just that they're not armed at all. And that's been intentional. And so that's just more of that. We want people to know that we have security on site. We don't necessarily want them to think that we have law enforcement on site that could remove their rights, put them in jail if, you know, so it just definitely changes the vibe.
Also run for things like warrants.
Yeah.
It would make us far less of a welcoming environment for some of our folks that are justice involved.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion?
So move approval of document number 2025-511. A contract for Trident Professional Security to provide services at the Deschutes County Health Services Stabilization Center not to exceed $252,000.
Second. Any other discussion? Seeing that, are there?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang? Yes, Chair will vote yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 2, presentation from 4D Recovery. So I know we talked about this a little bit last week in preparation for this, and it was more just, making sure we had the on-ramp was all we were talking about.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Holly Harris, Health Services Director.
Gabrielle Ward, I'm the community center manager for 4D in Deschutes County.
I believe we have Tony up on the screen there.
Yeah, Tony Vesna here, Executive Director of 4D Recovery.
Right, and so I'm mostly here to just kick us off. I'm gonna let Tony and Gabrielle take it from there once I kind of set the tone here. So as you know, the passage of Measure 110 and the subsequent amendments that followed, there was a substantial investment in substance use delivery system for the state, which led to what's known as Behavioral Health Resource Networks, otherwise known as BHRNs. So in Deschutes County, the following organizations are funded through BHRN: Deschutes County Behavioral Health, Best Care, Boulder Care, Ideal Options, New Priorities Family Services, Rimrock Trails, and now 4D Recovery. So 4D is the newest addition to the local BHRN, and they are from the Portland area and have really reached out to try and connect with the local entities, make sure we understand what they're bringing to our community, how we can collaborate, and just understand the community in which they're entering. And so that's why we're here today, so they can kind of share at a high level what services they plan to bring to Deschutes County. We met with them at Behavioral Health I think about a month or so ago. Commissioner Chang was able to join us for that. And we're really supportive of the work they're trying to do. I think the main thing I'm interested in understanding when a new provider comes from outside the area into our community, also one that's funded through very limited, very competitive resources, is that we're not duplicating any of our services here, that we're really enhancing the service delivery for our community. And I do, after meeting with 4D Recovery, I really believe that is what they're doing. They're offering something we don't offer and we don't plan to offer. So I think that's exciting for our community. So it's an additive. So they're a peer-led recovery community organization that serves young people They're gonna serve 18 to 35-year-olds here recovering from substance use disorder and co-occurring mental health challenges. So with that, I will turn it over to Tony.
Yeah, hi, and then just Angie, was I gonna share my own screen? Is that optional, or were you
Yeah,
gonna
that
run
would-
slides for me?
That would work best, Tony.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna turn the volume up a little bit too.
That would be
It's a little hard to
nice.
hear you. Yeah.
Oh,
That may be our side, yeah.
okay, how about now? Does that sound better?
Yes.
Better.
Yes.
Okay. Cool. All right, let me present here. Okay, and are you guys able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you able to see the second slide?
4D recovery, the first slide, and then, yeah,
How about the third slide? I had this happen before.
on the left side, no, we
We're
have
seeing,
not
if
moved.
they're teeny.
The slides aren't moving for us.
Okay. How about if I do this?
There you go.
There you
There
go.
we go.
Okay, I'll run it this way. Okay, so, first and foremost, I just wanted to say thank you so much to Holly and her team for inviting us down. The first thing I wanted to do after receiving funds from Measure 110 and the rollout that happened, which I wasn't a big fan of, was introduce ourselves and say, hey, we know we got funded. It's been it's sort of a difficult project to roll out, and we want to be able to have good relationships and provide really good service. So as Holly said, we're funded through ballot measure 110. We were able to get a few staff. We were able to hire Gabri here, who you'll hear from at the end. We're currently looking for a building while we're building community partnerships, and our targeted opening date is somewhere in November to January of this year. We've got some good inroads on potential locations, despite the competitive market that you guys have in Bend right now, which I'm sure you're fully aware of. A little bit about 4D. We were founded in 2013. I'm one of the founders. It was right after I got sober. I've been sober a little over 13 years. It was a bunch of young people hanging out in a warehouse, and we decided to form a nonprofit where other people who were sober, other young people who were sober, could have a place to just hang out, continue their sobriety, have a community to be with like-minded people. Before that, we were hanging out like the church basements and stuff like that, or going to the bar and still hanging out. We didn't have a sober place to go. There was some old timers, as we would call them, from Alcoholics Anonymous, who were professionals in various disciplines, including behavioral health services. We had some attorneys, some pretty successful business owners. They had found us. They had a lot of sobriety time, and they started mentoring us so we could expand our services. We received a very small grant in 2014 from Multnomah County Behavioral Health, and that was really the funding that provided us an engine to get our services up and rolling. Since that time, we've expanded our services. We have the peer support, one person recovery helping another. We have some sober living and transitional recovery housing facilities. We have multiple recovery centers in the Tri-Counties area, one in Washington State, and then we're opening some other ones. We focus on adolescents and young adults. As Holly referenced, we'll be doing young adult services down in Bend. We do have behavioral health services. We do some public education, some advocacy, and participate in policy development. I know I'm limited in time, so I'm not going to go over all these slides, but this gives us a snapshot here of what our current capacity is. In the Tri-County area, most of our services are there. We have a pretty large 40-unit post-residential treatment sober living facility where people exiting residential treatment can go if they want to, continue their sobriety, participate in treatment, and they can live there for about up to 2 years. Nobody has yet. Most people become self-sufficient before that and move out on their own, back with family, with their kids, into an apartment, etc. We have 3 additional sober living residential units besides that are connected to our outpatient treatment services. We have a young adult outpatient treatment facility. That's outpatient treatment services, addiction and mental health. We have 1 adolescent outpatient treatment facility that's in Portland. We do street outreach and intervention teams for young adults, including deflection. Our goal is really to go out, provide interventions to people, motivate them to seek treatment, and change their lives. And we're really, really good at that because we use people in recovery to do that. We have 4 drop-in recovery centers. I'll explain what a drop-in recovery center is in a minute. One of the things I'm the most proud of that we've been working on is we're opening up an adolescent and family recovery campus. It'll be one of the only models of its kind, if not the only model of its kind, in the United States. It'll have adolescent residential, detox, outpatient treatment, a recovery drop-in center, and it'll work in tandem with the 2 sober high schools that are in Portland, which I helped founded several years ago. And then in Marion County, through some grant funds we got from Measure 110 and a county-funded grant, we're actually co-locating an outpatient, adolescent, mental health, addiction services, and a peer drop-in center with the 3rd sober high school. And so that's a really cool development. And then we're opening up in Jackson County, a young adult recovery center, and then one in Deschutes and Bend, as you guys are aware of. So if you kind of simplify down our formula, we want to do 3 things. We want to intervene on substance use. It's through our outreach, engagement, public education, activities like that. We want to be able to stabilize people through treatment. And then when we want to be able to provide these long-term recovery support services that are going to help people maintain their sobriety, maintain the changes they've made in treatment, and support them over the long term. And the research shows that if you can help a person reach about the 5-year mark of remission, their likelihood of having a relapse or recurrence of use drops to about 10 to 15%, which is the equivalent of developing a substance use disorder in the first place. So I just wanted to show these 2 slides. This is the addiction treatment process. It's really linear in nature. You get an assessment by a clinician, and then they give you a treatment plan, and that could be one-on-one counseling, some group sessions, recovery goal setting, and then you graduate and you get a linkage to some support services. So it's short-term, acute in nature. This is principally the model that we've used to fund addiction services. And then we have recovery centers here. This is what we're opening down in Bend. And recovery centers are cool because people enter and exit at will. They get to come as long or as little as they want. They get to associate with other people in recovery. They can meet with a mentor, continue their goals without the requirement of a diagnosis and a treatment plan, and without us having to fight with health insurance providers to give people services. And the goal here is not graduation. The goal here is retention. We want people to retain in the recovery center and stay there for as long as we can keep them to help them support their recovery. The appointments are mutually created, or the person comes when they want to go to a meeting or go to something like a fun activity or something like that. And then we also have a variety of recovery support meetings and skill building groups. So here's kind of the ingredients here to a recovery community center. So we have lots of mutual aid groups. There's going to be different meetings every day, 12-step meetings, different groups, fun activities, kind of whatever the local community wants. We ask that local community members develop these things so it's reflective of what the community wants, what they're interested in. And then we have peer mentors here. That's people like Gabri and others who are going to be coaching people along in their recovery, maybe helping them get back into treatment if they have a mishap, or start the treatment process if they just walk in our doors, etc. Whatever their goals are, that's what we want to do. And then when it comes to harm reduction, the only thing that we really do that's probably related to what you might think of as harm reduction is really handing out Narcan to help people who, overdose or whatever. We don't do any syringe exchange services. We don't give out using supplies or anything like that. But these are the ingredients of the model that we're going to bring down. And then recovery centers, they really help sustain remission upon initiating or completing treatment. So someone may come into the recovery center because they hear about it from a friend or something, and may be actively using. Now, at our recovery centers, we have a strict code of conduct, so people can't come there and just use drugs and party and sell drugs and, just get free stuff. They got to be participating in recovery. Well, people may come seeking recovery, and then our mentors will help them get into treatment. And then people leaving treatment, they'll come to the recovery center to sustain their success in treatment, which does a couple of things. It keeps them from having to go back to the high cost, high acuity care that they just left. And then most importantly, it helps them, from dying or going to jail, committing crimes and stuff like that. So in a lot of ways, these recovery centers are like safety net services for communities. We've done some research projects and been a part of various academic studies. If you guys ever want to read about recovery services in your downtime, I know you got enough going on, but you could look at the Recovery Research Institute. It's a collaboration between Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. And I just wanted to highlight one of our many surveys and some of our data here that we did with a third-party evaluator, CoMagine Health. We did a rigorous review here, but I just wanted to look at this. So this was consumer outcomes. And so 92% of people who participated in this survey said, participating in Ford Recovery improved their quality of life. 90% said it helped them achieve abstinence milestones. 90% said it achieved their recovery goals. 85% improved their health, 77% achieved employment goals, 74% educational goals, 74% said they reconnected with their children, and 72% said they improved their housing. So we do focus on, helping people overcome substance use disorder, but we're really looking at how can we make people self-sufficient and independent and motivated to achieve the best quality of life, become contributing members of society, et cetera, because that's something that me and all my staff have been able to accomplish through recovery. Last thing here, the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission and the Oregon Health Science University partnered to do a substance use disorder gaps analysis. I chair the Alcohol and Drug Policy Commission right now, and we identified that of the different facilities that provide substance use disorder services, the recovery community centers were the most lacking. Now, some of that has changed through ballot measure 110 investments. And so we're starting to close this gap on the 145 we identified we needed and the 8 that we said that we had at the time. So that's changed marginally, but we're excited to bring this service down to your area of the woods, and we're looking for ways that we can collaborate and be the most effective, and that's going to take us learning from y'all. So with that, I will pass it over to Gabri, who through 4D got to come home.
Good afternoon, guys.
Hello.
Yeah. Very grateful to be here today, and I just want to share with you guys my experience and why this is so impactful for me. I grew up in Deschutes County, and I went to high school out here and grew up in a really good family. But I ended up falling into addiction at a young age. Really young age, 12 years old, and really struggled with the criminal justice system, going in and out of juvenile and jail here. And a lot of just struggle, really. It went to Vermont Trails, different treatment centers, and I found that there was a huge lack of services for young people, and I couldn't stay sober. And I ended up in prison at 19 years old. Brief overview. I'm 26 today, and in March I'll have 5 years sober, but there was a missing piece the whole time, and it was a recovery organization for young people. I'm a client of 4D, and when I found 4D, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I was amazed, quite frankly, that there was a place like this for young people. And I was in Portland at the time, and I said, this needs to be everywhere, really. Like, we need to have this event. Like, we could save so many people. And I swear I've been shouting it for years. Because I really believe that this, was the missing piece for me. I got sober at 21 years old. And that's a really young age to get sober. I wish, this was around when I was younger and here, there's always the what if. Like, what if it was? And what if I didn't have to go to prison? And what if I didn't have to like do these things? If I had this organization that had, other people like me in the same room. We didn't really touch on like what it's like to walk into the recovery center. But you walk into this recovery center and this is a place tailored for young people. We have pool table and ping pong and PS5 and different meetings and different events that we have, dances and speaker meetings, and you walk in and you're like, this place is cool. Like, where, what is this? And it kept me coming back. I looked around and there's people my age, and I got a mentor with 4D, and my mentor helped me get a job, get my ID back, do these things that quite frankly, I couldn't do on my own. And through working with a mentor and completing these goals in my life, I really was able to stay sober. And I've been with 4D, working with 4D for about 3.5 years now, over 3.5 years. And as soon as this opportunity became available, I jumped on. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I've been saying it, I'll go. If we open up in Bend, I will be the first one to go. And so this work is very personal for me and very impactful for what we're going to be able to do for the young people of Deschutes County. And I'm very excited with the partnerships we have made already. I feel like you guys have really welcomed us, and we're going to be able to really connect with different community partners and support our young people very well. So I'm just glad that you guys allowed us to do this presentation, and very excited on what's to come.
So, Gabby, do you know how much funding they're putting into? And I would actually say Central Oregon, I'd say we just had 6 young people from Crook County a year ago that were psychotic disorder from marijuana use. And so, and I just was at the Rimrock event Thursday night at Versada. So I know that they're part of what's been here for 35 years.
Yeah.
But how much money is being allowed to be spent here? Because I thought the burn funding was really a bit challenged.
Oh, it's really challenging.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as you know, Deschutes County Behavioral Health took about a $4 million hit for
Right.
funding. So, and I think Tony alluded to this when he first kicked it off, of like, none of us are happy with the way that all
I know.
transpired. 4D likely benefited because of some of the reorganization they did with the funding, which is a good thing. We get 4D here as a result of it. We took a hit and obviously had to make some.
So did
hard
everybody
choices.
else.
So did everyone else.
Ideal,
Yeah.
Best
Yeah.
Care,
Yeah, so,
Rimrock.
yeah, it really was not an
What
ideal.
about Healing Rains? Did they get a
I
lot?
don't know if they applied this go around,
Really?
because I don't see them on the list, and I don't know if they actually applied for funding. I'd have to double check. And I don't know the total amount that came to our region. It's on the website. I could certainly get that for
Okay,
you.
just thank you so much for your story.
Yes.
Thank you for being sober for what, 5 years, you said?
Almost 5 years.
Yeah,
yes.
that's really, I know, that's really impressive. And you just gotta keep it up, right?
So nice to have a local
Yes.
person.
Somebody
that
that's
take over
lived here
as well.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
wonderful you came back.
I needed to.
Yes.
Yeah,
And to help other people with their journey.
Yeah.
It's great.
very important.
If I could. Or, do you have?
Okay.
A question for all 3 of you. So, Holly mentioned how this is not duplicative. So what there's a niche to be filled here. But I am curious, other organizations that seek to support young people. Where are all the connections and handoffs? Like, what does that look like? The interactions among the different groups in like a network that are providing services?
I can touch on this. We have connected with a lot of different organizations. One in particular, I know, Skyline Recovery. They work with ages 18 to 35. And I'm just going to use them for an example. So they have housing and they're doing, outside treatment. When it comes to where they go at night, they come to 4D. When it comes to building that community of young people, they come to 4D. Going to 12-step meetings, they come to 4D. So it's really, it's almost like one hand washes the other. It's that place, I like to say like a kick it spot for young people to come and build that community. So we work really well with different treatment centers, you know, sober livings, where we provide that space, you know, outside of treatment, like Tony mentioned, the continuum of care. When they leave treatment, we are there for them. And that's where our peer mentors come into play as well, kind of walking through that journey. Because, I mean, I'm sure you guys know that after treatment, it's so important to have that aftercare. And they can go to outpatient, but this is just that that space where they can really build that community and have the mentor to support them in their goals.
The social aspect. of
Yeah.
things, I mean, which can be the biggest struggle when becoming sober, of not feeling like you have a social support network that is also sober, that you can be around and still have fun and go do all the fun things you want to do as a young person. And that's not a space that Deschutes County Behavioral Health operates in. We have to generate revenue. I mean, this is where Measure 110 funding can be really great because it's flexible. It's not dependent upon the assessment that Tony talked about, the service plan, the billables, that kind of thing. It's a space where people can just be and socialize and connect.
There's
So
no,
there's still
there's
a-
no reimbursement for building a social support
No.
network.
No, there's not. There's no billing code in Medicaid for what they're talking about. And so your question too, I think, like, how are these connections being made? There are existing groups of substance use disorder providers that are pretty robust in our community that we participate in, that, you know, she's already participating and coming to and participating in those meetings. And so we're bringing them in with us as we continue to work on referrals and connections.
Yeah, and I was really trying to understand kind of, you know, how how a person goes from one set of services to.
Yeah.
To 4D and vice versa, and that was a really helpful example, thank you.
Eric,
The teen drop-in center, is that in the Central Oregon, or can you describe where it is and what it looks like?
The Recovery Drop-In Center?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're the one coming to Deschutes County.
Okay, it's not here yet.
Not here yet.
They're looking for it.
We've got a building,
Got it.
you know, very, very close to finishing that up. But yeah, so we're still in the works. But you guys will be updated every step of the way.
And they'll be hiring, and that's part of their implementation, so
Yeah.
we're excited to see it come to fruition.
What does the full team look like when you've got your space and you've built out a team?
Yeah, so I'm the supervisor and I'm gonna be supervising 2 mentors. And we're gonna be staffing the community drop-in center. And so what that looks like is our mentors will be supporting, you know, young people, and I will also be supporting young people in this area. And then providing the meetings and the different recovery events that happen.
Can you talk a little about what kind of events you all put on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything from, anything over the moon that you can think of, karaoke, we've done something called speed fellowshipping. Think of speed dating, but meeting young people in recovery, sometimes it's really hard to walk up to another young person and introduce yourself. So we give that opportunity where you get to like meet people that way. Anything from, you know, dances to different Halloween events and really anything you can think of that young people would want to do, you know, kickball, different barbecue events and stuff like that.
so you have a home base coming together here in Central Oregon in Bend.
We do.
And then do you see this as a service area for kind of Deschutes County or Tri-County area or just the city? You know, how much people moving around, I guess what I'm envisioning.
So all of Deschutes County.
Yeah.
We'll be servicing all of Deschutes County.
Well, thanks for the outreach. I know you were trying to connect with us a month or 2 ago, or whatever it was, and then, as I say, just bringing it to the meeting today, it's like, well, what are we gonna do? So just introduction, learn about the program, and you know, best wishes, best luck out there.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us here.
It'd be really exciting to track your work as it unfolds.
I'm assuming there'll be a grand opening of some sort.
We
Yeah,
will be
we'll
having,
we'll invite you guys to
Okay.
the grand opening when we open up.
yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Gabriella.
Have a
Yeah.
good day. Thank you
so
guys.
much.
Thank you. Item number 3, update for community roundabout art progress.
So.
Rise up, Greg. Hello, everyone.
Oh, if you're sitting there, you can't be on the screen.
Oh,
Tracy.
This chair is.
I'm here for a second, you're here for all of it.
You can just lean forward.
Okay.
There you
Well,
go.
good afternoon, board. Chris Doty, Road Department Director. It's been almost 2 years since we've had an update
Yeah.
from a group of stakeholders in Tumalo area regarding roundabout art at the intersection of US 20 and OB Riley Cook. As you may recall, ODOT does allow roundabout or art in their roundabouts, and so ODOT roundabout provided that they have an intergovernmental agreement with the local government in the area, basically assigning the responsibility for the art to the local government. And of course, with that goes the selection and all the controversy that comes with that from time to time. It's not controversial, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, especially here in Logan recently, there's no even news about anything like that. Don't worry. As such, it's been 2 years, and we tasked this group with 3 things. Because we'll be, entering that IG with ODOT. Group of stakeholders, want to do this. And this is really our first time, in this arena, where the county is doing something like this. So we asked the group to conduct a community process to obtain feedback and select that preferred concept. Second thing we asked was to fund installation of the art. And then finally, to fund or address perpetual maintenance of the installation. So basically, the thought was 2 years ago, hey, we're willing to take this on as Deschutes County. But here are the things that, the community, will need to own moving forward. So here to give you an update on everything, is Nathan Wismer. You were here 2 years ago?
Yep.
Yep. Lauren Kramer. Also kind of helped spearhead, and I think you probably all know Steve Davidson from The Bite and then other business ventures, et cetera. So with that, goodbye, everyone. There you go.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh, yeah, so my company, Nathan's Custom Wood and Steel, is gonna be the installer and builder of the art. Lauren put together all the requirements through the county for voting and the process, and Steve and 3 others have created a nonprofit Pamelo Improvement Project. We're up and running and have already received some donations. So we're gonna be getting some engineered drawings to initiate the application process with ODOT for approval. That's where we're at so far.
Well, as you can see, it's just that relationship kind of long term, having the approval, having the community buy-in, getting it built, and then long-term maintenance. Making sure we're not all hanging out there, half-done project or whatever. So I think that's the big picture.
Yeah,
One of my thoughts is there any integration with the monuments coming in and out of town, or is that another whole world? So
which monuments?
the welcome to Tumalo signs, the ones that are already out.
Oh, does it have anything to do with those? No.
Yeah, it hasn't come up at all, or,
Mm,
yeah, okay, because that was a community effort years ago too.
Yeah.
Came together.
The
Mel-
irrigation
Mel.
pieces?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, so did that, we purchased his house, one who designed those. So yeah, the irrigation.
That's just,
wheels.
yeah.
Yes,
not even-
Yeah,
And so it hasn't even come up.
no, it
Yeah, they
hasn't.
talked about mule deer, horses, trout. I loved it.
Yeah, there's a lot of community input. So once we went through, had the voting, it's been a long process, but we wanted to get it right and we had to get the right people in. So we now have a nonprofit that will be bringing in the funds for that. And so hopefully,
Yeah, there were 4 people that submitted ideas. And the idea was to incorporate an idea of what people thought of Tumalo or what Tumalo community was about. And my concept 1, to include the windmill for the irrigation aspect of the community and horses. There's a lot of horse properties, the trout for the river, and then native vegetation that should require minimal upkeep. And then the money we'll be raising in the budget also incorporates enough money left over to keep up maintenance, which will also be a community project.
Is the windmill gonna be spent?
No, it can't.
Yeah, I didn't think,
I
yeah,
wish.
I mean, cause then, yeah, that's a maintenance item in itself, will shake itself.
No, that, all of it has to meet wind shear regulations.
Yeah. Yeah, so
But,
that's designed.
Yeah, no moving parts.
Well, otherwise you could power lights.
Yeah, I wish. No lights either.
So next step, is for us to, enter into an, agreement, intergovernmental agreement with ODOT, pretty standard stuff. Then we'll be sort of side agreement with the new nonprofit. Basically, hey, here's the terms of maintenance and expectations. Then a permit will need to be pulled, for the actual construction. And that'll be figured out, I think once, understand how that's all gonna go down, and there's some community resources Nathan and I were talking about that can help, traffic control and things like that, so. Appears to be shaping up on the right path, and
Yeah, we have people in line to help donate services for traffic control, and if we need crane or concrete work for the foundation, the artwork. So, get all the right people involved.
Who's the permit from, for ODOT permit?
we had, a permit for working in the right of way. That will
For
need
the
to be
state,
pulled.
to the state.
And when do you guys think I might be able to see it happening? Will it be like another year, you think?
I don't
What's
know,
up?
I'm not
Let's see.
sure how long the process of getting approval through ODOT will take, so.
Yeah, could you?
Hopefully-
that? The application with ODOT? Chris, are you gonna handle
Yeah.
that?
Oh, Chris
Yeah,
will
so
handle
we'll
it.
do the intergovernmental agreement. ODOT does have, design standards on
Yeah,
the art. And so they'll take the proposal. I think they've already probably commented on it a little bit.
yeah,
They said, no, can't.
no,
can't be
moving parts.
Yeah.
No moving parts.
No
There's
lighting.
gotta be certain setbacks from the edge of the apron. Asphalt apron, I forget what they
Yeah.
called it. And then there has to be, I think, breakaway, points like street signs have those shear off. Forget what they're called, but yeah, stuff like that, and it should be fairly simple, but
Is there a budget, does something need to be watered out there?
nope, they can't, they won't allow
Yeah,
that
I
there.
don't think that's always.
That's why I do need landscape, and we'll take water out there to get them started.
Mhm.
Buckets, stuff like that, and then part of the maintenance program will be trimming back the bushes, and if. It's also mentions in ODOT's agreement that if something were to happen to the artwork, we have X amount of time to repair it, and if not, then they can take it back. And that's all part of their agreement with us and Deschutes County.
As I said, I think this is kind of just the formality of us
Yeah.
looking at each other and saying, let's go forward.
Now, we're moving forward, and we have all the moving parts, we're just, it's part of a lot of things that need to happen.
Yeah.
Especially raising money, I don't think will be an issue, it's just getting their ducks in a row and get moving.
Are you putting any ducks in it?
No.
About alpacas? Yeah, there are a lot of
I
alpacas
know,
in Tupelo.
there's, yeah,
I know, there's more
some
horses.
people wanted more fish, some people wanted more deer,
Yes.
so we'll see.
There's a lot of other roundabouts that could be alpacas.
That's true. I know.
Chris, I
Right.
wanted to ask, so that roundabout has been in place now and operating for at least a couple of years now, 2 years. What have we seen in terms of people driving over it? Otherwise kind of impinging on the on the center of the roundabout.
Yeah, I mean, the tracks kind of speak for themselves. Some of them I think are intentional. Others, I think, there may have been one incident where a vehicle went in there unintentionally. It's just gravel right now, so it's very inviting, for that type of thing. But the ODOT design standards kind of account for, some degree of making sure that, if someone goes in there unintentionally, they're not hitting an obstruction that's gonna cause severe damage. From what I see here, it looks to be, but for the windmill, which is right in the middle and hopefully the safest place to be, like it should meet their standard.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at other roundabout art, people aren't driving to the middle once they have some kind of structure there, so I'm sure it'll be quite a deterrent.
And that's the point of
Right.
art and things in a roundabout is that, you know, when you do provide that there, it provides that break, visual horizon, so to speak. And so it's not just there for looks and identity, but it does serve a purpose, you know, that drivers, you know, do see it and slow down.
So, so in the engineering, they plan for some kind of visual break.
Yeah, I mean, you see that it's mounted already. And you need something there to definitely like break the headlights of oncoming traffic. So traffic will tend to kind of drive into, you know, oncoming
Yeah.
headlights, and when you have something there to break that up, you know, it's considered best practice.
Well, I just drove to Prineville the other day and the roundabout at the top of the hill, I had a whole new perspective because it's really up high and there's a bronze horse and
Yeah,
cowboy, and then
beautiful.
there's another rope horse they're roping. So I thought,
Yeah.
well, I never looked at it like I did last week, and I went
Checking
like,
it out.
wow, isn't that, it's, cause it is way up high. When you
Yeah.
see it.
And
But
that
that
one,
roundabout was originally, that was not designed right. I think it was one of the first ones. I remember pulling my horse trailer through, and thank goodness they fixed that roundabout to give it more capacity.
I believe that one said empty, working on the art for a while, right?
It did, yes,
Yeah.
years.
How many years did theirs say?
I want to say 3 or 4, probably. It's out there. I mean, this is pretty common.
Yeah,
We're
getting there.
I
You know,
know.
it's,
Great.
you know, in cities, you know, you know, where they have more art available and things like that. You know, pretty common to design those into the roundabouts, for these rural roundabouts on the state highway system. Again, ODOT's just gonna do something real basic. They don't wanna get in the art game, and I don't blame them. So they've let local government do that. Of course, the community of Temelos has a lot of, you know, pride, and I fully expected, you know, something like this to pop up. And so I think we're happy to help facilitate that.
Great, well, thanks for the update, congratulations.
Thank you.
Full speed ahead.
Good luck.
Money in
Thank
the
you.
bank,
Yeah, some of it.
Some of the money's in the bank, okay. Congratulations. Thank
So
you.
at some point, there'll be a kind of like formalization next step.
Your government agreement will be the next thing.
There's like 3 of these, and this is the Sleep and Heavenly Peace program. Do you know about it?
No, but I heard you talk about.
I know. Anyway, there's information. It's really a great program, and they are being
Thank you.
impacted.
Thank you, have a great day.
Kids that don't have that. And those- Yeah, it's a great program. Thank you. Thanks, guys. See you. Good luck. Thank you. Yeah. Love art. Yeah. The banker. It's a
Some of the
banker.
money.
Thank you, Chris. Thanks. You sent me an email, right? Okay, I know. I was thinking like, I know, cause I'm going tomorrow morning to stop it.
Okay.
I heard that. Okay, next item, clarification on guidelines for the district mapping advisory committee.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jen Patterson, Strategic Initiatives Manager. I'm here at the request of the DMAC, which is the District Mapping Advisory Committee. Request of the majority of the members to get further clarification on the guidelines. So just to give you an update where they are right now. They have 3 draft maps that they're working off of. So far, those draft maps, there's no been overlays of the draft maps. It's just been kind of breaking it up. Not kind of, it has been breaking it up, trying to get within proportional amount of equal representation for each 5 district. There has been a robust discussion over the last 9 meetings about what population source to use. We provided the DMAC with 2 data sets. The voter registration data set, which is current as of August. We can pull another one to make it more current. You know, some people have joined since then. So we're going to talk about actually doing that for the next meeting. And then also the 2020 census. So there's some pluses and there's some limitations to each of those data sets that have been discussed robustly, like I said, amongst the members about what to use. And 2 meetings ago, the 15th, October 15th, there was a majority vote to accept the voter registration. That was on a 4-3 vote for the DMAC. So they're going to use primarily the voter registration data as a data set to draft the districts. They are going to also look and review the census population. So Lee Klemp, our GIS IT analysis person who has been doing a phenomenal job of producing maps and data every week, week on weekend, has created a draft so they can see in real time, anytime they move a precinct, it will change the numbers for both those data sets. So they still have the visual both data sets, but they're going to use the 2020, I'm sorry, the current voter registration data sets they're going off of. With that being said, staff in that data graph produced a box to set the limits of that, using the mean number of the set, and it's done for both data sets, the mean number, basically the total population divided by 5. And then we did plus or minus 5%, or we thought we did plus or minus 5%. We did 5% over, 5% under, and then staff caught just shortly before the meeting last week that in fact the guidelines specifically say 5%. Actually, let me just read it so I read it very correctly. The guidelines specifically say 5% variance between the largest and smallest district, and what we had done with doing the 5% over and the 5% under had inadvertently done a 10%. 10% is
Please.
so 10% is what has been used in the past. There's no very clear directive coming from the state of Oregon or a mandate of what needs to be done. The US Supreme Court cases have set a precedent for 10% or under range has been acceptable for maps in the past. And there is an Oregon state directive that doesn't very specifically mention the range of the districts for equal population. And the Oregon state directive, which a lot of our guidelines is built off of, was specifically drafted for redistricting, and this is brand new districting. There is a legislative policy briefing paper out that specifically talks about equal population size, and that's where they cite the Supreme Court for the 10%. So that's a long wind up to the why I'm here, but I wanted to provide that background information why we're here. So the committee is struggling a bit with reaching all of the guidelines that are written in or all of the criteria written in the guidelines. We have pointed out that language in the guidelines say should be nearly as practicable. There's wiggle room in those guidelines, not mandates for some of these areas, but they would like clarification from the commissioners of would, if they got down to it, would the preference be between two of the criteria listed, expand the 5% variance between smallest to largest precinct to 10%, or start looking at chopping up precincts and not sticking to existing precinct lines. With that background, I'd like to say one more caveat on that is there have been instances where recently, like Washington County is a good example. In 2022, they did redistricting. They did a very extensive process redistricting. They did a public outreach process, but ended up doing the map drafting within staff and then went back out to the public with their proposed maps. And they split precinct lines and they got to within, I think their largest differentiation was actually 11 voters. So they got really close. It was a year-long process, heavily staff involved, full-time, year-long for multiple staff, and then these multiple public listening sessions. It gets really technical to split precinct lines. There's no easy way to do it. I wouldn't say that the way that our data and mapping process is set up right now is set up to split precincts. And as the schedule is currently standing, they have 4 meetings left. That schedule is not set in stone, so that can change. But I just wanted to give a background on splitting precinct lines is not an easy process. It's a very labor-intensive process, both on staff and then potentially on the DMAC as well. So with all of that background now, the question on the table for the commissioners per the DMAC members, or would you like to prioritize, would you like the DMAC members to prioritize expanding the range between the smallest and largest district to 10% and working within that parameter, which they have currently been doing due to that error? Or would you like to give them the go ahead to split precinct lines if they get to that?
Thoughts?
I really hate to split precinct lines. I think if we can stay there, I do believe we have 4 meetings left. Doesn't he go south or something? like for the winter?
Yeah, but what we would, as staff would definitely figure out, it's not based off of Neil's schedule, so
Okay,
staff would
all I
figure
know
out.
is-
The staff have been in these and could probably very easily step into that facilitation role at this juncture, since we've been sitting in every one of those
Well, the
meetings, so.
fact that the census is from 2020 and we've added a lot of people, I really think that going with current numbers makes more sense for our county. So.
Well, that the DMAX already decided
Right, I
on,
know
if you
that.
guys would like to change their guidance, we
No,
could do that,
no,
but
I
that,
just,
yeah.
I'm happy with that decision.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I'm happy with that decision. I would hate to split precinct lines, so the variance becomes too big then with keeping precincts together.
The variance that we're requesting is a variance we have been using due to that mathematical error. And it would still fall within US Supreme Court case law that has been tested about districting and the equal population or proportion.
What about state Supreme Court? Do we have any decisions? from
Did we,
the US?
so the closest thing that we have is that legislative, it's LPRO, Legislative Public Research. I can look it up. I have their briefing paper, but it is actually the Oregon State briefing paper from their legislative office that cites the Supreme Court case
Okay,
of the 10%. So they use that as the
They use
guidance
that.
in that equal population terminology. But it's not in the Oregon State directive that specifically talks about map drafting criteria for redistricting. There's not really a paper out there for new districting or one that we have been able to find. But in that redistricting thing, they just use the language within equal population size without defining that. Which is where most of the language from the guideline is pulled from that Oregon State directive as well.
Jen, can you talk to us a little bit about what makes it difficult to administer districts where precincts have been broken into pieces?
So the natural dividing of the precincts, so there are some precincts, precinct 33, precinct 12 are already divided for a variety of different reasons. And maybe I should start with, I want to caveat that I am not Steve Dennison, county clerk, and I would be much more comfortable if he was here to talk about that, but he is out of town for a conference. He'll be back tomorrow, which was a little bit too late to get into our meeting packet for Wednesday. So Steve is really the guidance for that. And I will say also as a preview to my comments, in our working group, we talked extensively about this, and Nancy Blankenship, former county clerk, and Steve Dennison, current county clerk, felt very strongly about not dividing precincts. So there's a couple of challenges there. One, it could potentially add cost to the county when administering less elections, as different ballots will potentially go to a neighbor on one side of the street versus the other side of the street, but within the same district, because they might have different representation there. So there's some logistical and financial costs associated with that. But as far as a mapping standpoint, right now for our GIS mapping system, the way our mapping is set up by precinct. We're meeting again tomorrow in our working group to discuss this process a little bit more in detail, discuss a bunch of things, but this as well as like, how do you go about doing that? I don't know if we would need to get new software involved to be able to do that. We don't have currently with how we are using our software, and I don't want to overstep because I am not the expert in here. We don't have a way to draw a map that doesn't grab the whole precinct, except for those ones that are already split. Now, going back to those ones that are already split, precinct 33, that's Southeast Bend, Stevens Road. So it's a large precinct. I'm quoting a number, but it's around this, but I don't have it in front of me off the top of my head. It's about 5,000 to 6,000 population in that precinct, and it is split, but the way it's split, only 100 of that full 5,000 to 6,000 precinct population is on the one side of the split. So, and that is the case for the few precincts that are already nationally split within the county. It's disproportionately split 95 to 99% in one section of those. So the group has already looked at using some of those natural splits that have occurred to try to wiggle the data, and it doesn't help the situation. And it's primarily too because of precincts in the Bend area, which is where you need to do most of the mapping, and where I would say almost all of the other mapping is kind of said it's at that Bend area, how to split that up with large populations. The precincts are just so large, so to move one from the other really has a significant impact on each district. Yeah. So I can't talk any further on the data and the software because I'm not an expert in that field, but currently how it's set up, we don't have a way to look at that data or to map data outside of precincts. Now, I know that software exists, you know, I'm sure that Steve uses that when he goes and, you know, in 2022, he redrew precinct lines. So I'm sure in that case, there is software that's out there and that's usable. And I think our GIS team and Steve need to get together to talk about what that is, and we can bring that before you again, if that's the guidance that, you know, you'd like. So unfortunately, this conversation came up with some of the key players are out of the room for conferences. So I'm trying to hold everyone's expertise here, but I just don't have that knowledge. I do know it's complicated, and I've looked extensively at Washington County in particular, at all of their maps that they did. They ended up proposing 5 different map options and then taking it back to the public before, but that was all staff work. And it is very, like, it is by the street, down in the middle of the street, for all of their options to get that population so close. They did a phenomenal job of getting the population equal representation, but I'm sure it's a lot of work behind the scenes for staff to administer those districts on how they're laid out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm, this concerns me. You know, if there's a difference in population, you know, of like a few thousand between one district and another, I mean, we are essentially diluting the power of the vote of the people who live in the more populous district. So that's, we're doing that already. You layer on top of that, we're not using, you know, census data, total population, we're using only voter data, you know, registered voter data, and that could make it even, you know, it could make it even more unfair to the people who live in the more populated districts. So it, so the idea of using split precincts to be able to even that out, it is, you know, it is, there could be good reasons to do that. If it's much more complicated, it's much more expensive, that's a, you know, those are countervailing concerns. But yeah, I'm definitely not comfortable with the significant spread in population among the largest and the smallest districts in the proposed map so far.
I will say, I'm not sure that this request was premature, and I think it was appropriate for them to ask that, but the information brought to them that we've been doing that 10% spread instead of 5% spread was just last meeting. So there hasn't been significant or any work done to see if they could actually get it within that 5% spread. And so a couple of those maps were drafted by staff based off of direction from the DMAC. And when we were drafting those maps, we were given direction to get it within that, what we'll now call appropriately the 10% spread for each set of populations, and they just don't match up. And so it was really challenging to get that within both sets of populations, because you do have several precincts in the county that are predominant precincts in that Bend area. Not only Bend, I think there's one in Redmond too, that have more voter registration now than they had census population. And so it gets really challenging to get both of those data sets. And what we did was go back to the DMAC and say, the intent was never to use all of the data sets. The intent was to weigh, you know, the positives and the limitations that you have with each data set and find the best one. So the maps were originally drawn, and they've since crafted a third map from those, but the 2 maps that they were originally working with was the staff drafted maps based off of the directive to get both sets of those kind of sometimes conflicting population sets into that same spread, which is a very difficult challenge and task. So there is, I think, room out there for the DMAC to go back and look to see if they can get within that 5%, but know that they may have that 10%. So not a lot of work or any work has been done to actually get it with that 5%. But
I mean, they, you know, they didn't set out to create districts that were 5% or, you know, that were 5% apart. They set out to create districts that were almost exactly the same. So I mean, I don't see how, you know, if they set out to create districts that were almost exactly the same and the best they could do was within 10%, I don't see how, going back and looking again is magically gonna, help them shrink that, shrink that gap. I mean, it seems like we either have to relax the population gap, or we need to start chunking up precincts so that we can, get the populations of the districts closer to each other. Yeah, it doesn't seem like either one of those is a really great option, for various reasons.
And I don't disagree with that, I'm not gonna agree with the summation, but the actual work, yes, is kind of where they were working from, and very specifically why they asked this further guidance from you. One of the conversations that has come up repeatedly is that it's a very unusual case to be drawing districts in the middle between a 10-year census, right, in the 5 years. So there's not a whole lot of case study for that in like what data set that people use. The other point that's been brought up a lot amongst the DMAC members was that potentially these districts, if or the ballot measure or the commissioners, or there's a directive to look at redistricting after the next census, potentially these districts would be at most applicable for 2 election cycles, but maybe just the 1 election cycle, depending on when the census data. Technically, it could be within just the 1 election cycle, but probably going through a redistricting process will take a little bit longer. So potentially up to 2 election cycles. So there is that as well, but yeah, it's a challenging, the data sets are challenging, but they have their benefits and limitations for both sets, so.
I had another question. You may have already partially answered it by telling us how they did it in Washington County, but I wanted to understand why in other counties it was easier to have these very small differences between populations and districts. I mean, when you some of the discussion at the DMAC has been, like, oh, well, you look at other counties in Oregon that have districts and they're less than 5%. And so how were other counties able to accomplish that? I mean, is it, did they all do it the way that Washington County?
So some of that information is really hard to get. I was just doing some more research this morning anticipating that question. And not all of it's as easy and transparent as Washington County. So they had a whole website set up like similar to what we do that documents all of their work. So I could go back and really look through to see what Washington County could do. Hood River County, I can't find it to save my life. I know that they did it in 2022, but I can't see what their process looks like in any capacity. Not to say that it's not out there, it just wasn't super accessible to me. I would also say different languages that people use mean different things for data sets. And so I don't have all the information on hand, but one of the things that was brought up on Wednesday was like, well, most of the other counties who do redistricting are within 103% of the population or less. And I would say all the maps we have drawn are like that, because if you go off of 100% of the entire population, your margin is much big. You have a lot more numbers to play with than if you go 5% off of the mean number, much smaller. So if you look at the maps that staff originally drawn, they're all within 19 to 21% of the total population of any of the populations you use. So we're within 101 to 102% of the total population. But if you go off of the mean number, we're at 5 to 10% of the population, because the mean number, then you take that percentage off the mean number, you have a lot smaller mean number too. It gets really complicated and it makes my brain spin. I actually called Robert Tintel and I was like, I need you to help me talk about this. This was before this, but to the DMAC on these numbers. So I would also say that depending on what that language is, of how you're talking about that language. So without having the data of how much every single district is and the numbers of those, if people are talking about 101, 102, 103% of the total population, we have reached that with all of our maps. If you're talking about a spread between the smallest and the largest district, you're going off of the mean number and that spread is different. And so it really does depend on the very specific language you're using. Washington County, it's a pretty phenomenal thing what they did. They have a population of about 600,000. They have almost within 1 to 11 census count population amount they have between every one of their districts is between 1 to 11 people different. And they did that off of 5 maps. It was an incredibly extensive process. The process is,
That's just
yeah.
a point in time then.
Yes.
Still, no matter
Right.
what you do.
And
They
it was
published it.
very cut up, like if you look
Yeah.
at those precincts, it's incredibly cut up, but it was, they had a whole team doing that, and it was not a community committee. And I'm not saying it's not possible by that, but I'm saying if we do that route with this committee, we're probably not looking at the May election. I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I would like Steve to come in here and revisit that conversation if you'd like more information on that, to see what our software looks like and what we can do and can't do, or there's, you know, other opportunities where you could direct staff, you know, staff was never directed to draft maps and frankly made us a little uncomfortable to draft maps, but we were asked to do that by the DMAC and we did it straight off of population. We looked at nothing else, no other variants except for strictly, you know, data numbers only, when we did that, and then brought it back to them for them to use and peruse and do what they want with it. But, you know, if you're talking about dividing precincts, that is a very technical level of mapping, that you may want some experts in to help you do that.
Okay, and then don't forget, when you look up Washington County, it actually has a negative growth rate right now according to AI. So they're actually losing people. Yeah, interesting. But I mean, you know, we have to do the very best we can do, but populations do change.
Well, but the closer you start with, the less dramatic the gap is going to grow to when population increases or decreases. I mean, you know, my concern for us is that, you know, population is rapidly growing in our county. So if you start with districts that have that already have a couple thousand person gap, and the growth is in the district that, you know, was the biggest to start with, then the gap is, you know, that you disenfranchised people even more, you diluted the power of people's votes even more by starting with a bigger district. So I guess that would be a whole nother way to look at this, and I think that people have been looking at building permit data.
So we have this is another discussion another topic that they have grappled with extensively, is this growth topic, and like, how do you actually apply that hypothetically or with data to an existing map with existing data. So what they requested of us and we brought to them at the last meeting was we pulled all new building permits issued between January 1, 2022 through October 20th, 2025. So we got those from the city of Redmond, we got those from City of Bend, and we got those from the county, and then did this map for them to show. But what we realized when that map was showing was it was just the building permit, not the dwelling, also the dwelling number. So now we're gonna go back to them with the building permit and the dwelling numbers, right? Because you could have, Jack Straw has 1 building permit issue and they have 316 units there, and then next door would have 1. So, sorry.
313, only 3 are affordable. We mustn't forget that.
Okay, so
But it is like, how do you use that data? That's something they're gonna have to grapple with, because that is.
well, maybe you could, as you're building your districts from precincts, maybe you could make sure that the places that are growing the fastest are on the small side, and the places that are growing the slowest are on the big side, so that they'll probably balance out a little bit over time, rather than starting with, if you have the districts whose population is already the biggest also be the fastest growing, you're just diluting people's voting power more and more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's something that they're grappling with, and certainly if you guys want to make a directive on how they should interpret that data, I think one of the downsides of that data, right, doesn't show when those units are going to be occupied. So those are issued, and so you could potentially have an area that's showing 500 new growth, but maybe not going to be occupied till 3030. I mean, like, that's a hypothetical, but like, you have that also. So, you're limited when you start using kind of some of this growth data on how you're going to apply it. But I think one of the conversations that they were talking about extensively when they started looking at these new building permit issues was, should we start applying this to our maps? And is that one of the conversations in that concept I do believe came up, but
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
figuring out exactly how fast the population is gonna grow and, you know, over time. Like that's I'm not talking about trying to do some kind of precise science like that. I'm just saying. If you're starting with some districts that are bigger and some that are smaller, how about making the ones that are smaller in populations, the ones that are likely to grow the most? So that it evens out over time.
It sounds like you, I mean, I support existing precinct lines. Have you come to that conclusion?
No, but I mean, you know, if I'm gonna get outvoted 2-1, then that would be my request that we.
Oh, well, my point is I support that, where you're going with that. I mean, if the recommendation is please use existing precinct lines. But that's the analysis that can be done to optimize this first cut. So as I say, I'm just showing support for where you're going, but making a decision for where we're at.
And according to the World Population Review, Deschutes County growth rate this year has been less than 1%. But it does make sense with what Commissioner Chang is saying. If it's a larger area with Bend in it that is showing more growth, yeah, make that one at the smaller end because they will, they'll balance out.
I can definitely tell them, it sounds like there is a unanimous thought process on utilizing some of that new building permit growth trends that we're seeing.
But the growth trend is definitely, it's gone way down,
Well,
so.
so the guidance is
Bless you.
existing precinct lines that's the question, right?
Yeah,
That's what we're
precinct-
The
answering.
guidance is if they get down to, is the preference to be breaking up precincts or to changing what I would like, if we go this route, I'd like to formally change the guidelines and update the guidelines to say maps should be drawn to approximately equal population size, recommended to be within 5% range between the largest and smallest districts. So I'd like to update that language if that is the preference over breaking up precinct lines.
So, yeah, I mean, we do have our census, precincts, the districting of the state is updated, so the congressional seats and the state legislative seats. And I think this, maybe you can confirm, precincts are updated every 10 years too, aren't they? I mean.
So I believe this is something I've learned in this process is I believe, and again, I'd like Steve to verify this, but that Steve updates precincts, any one precinct can't be over 10,000 voters. So if they're hitting that 10,000 voter range, then he updates precinct lines. So I know it was last done in February 2022. I don't know if that was done because I do know that some of them had hit that 10,000 voter range. I don't know if it was done automatically also because it was coming out of the census.
Oh, okay, well, so then that's, what is that? So the clerk doesn't touch them more than every 10 years? or-
I'm not saying that, I just,
After census data, I mean,
Yeah.
you know, if you're
Well,
doing it,
voters-
if you're
Well,
doing it because it has gone over 10,000. And the official data set that you use is the census, then.
the voter,
You can't
it's
do it
voter
with the-
registration for the precincts. It's 10,000 for
every
voter.
day.
We just actually looked at this when Steve was gone, so we were wondering that question too, because there's a couple
Yeah.
precincts getting close, but it's voter registration
But how often?
for the precincts.
Or when does that get triggered? Could that be done?
That I don't know.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even want to propose this.
Well, my
Yeah.
point is there is a evolution of those precinct numbers over time too. And I guess we don't know the specifics here at the table right now. So I mean, I support using precinct lines, and obviously we're using the existing precinct lines as a point in time because they are going to change over time. When I did attend a couple of the meetings, one remote, couple in person, and not all of them, but I was following the process. And you could see when you make a choice, the numbers just kind of start popping out of that little window that you were trying to keep it in. So then I was starting to think the concept of, 5% is the goal, but it's gonna be 6 or 7, it's less than 10. But as you're explaining there, you could spin the math on that lots of different ways. But I do support the fact that, the goal is, however you wanna write it now, 10%.
I would update the guidelines for section under map drawing criteria, section 4B, I would say maps should be drawn to approximately equal population size, recommended to be within 10% range between the largest and smallest district is
Yeah,
what I
okay,
would
so-
recommend if that's what you
Yeah.
want to put as a preference there.
Yeah, as long as it's been
recommended.
cited.
Well, so then, as I say, I mean, then they're studying it, they're meeting weekly, they're understanding growth patterns in the county, you know, expectations of where is gonna, some district or some precinct gonna grow by hundreds or thousands, cause as a percentage, sometimes like, you know, La Pine grows by the largest number, but it really went from 100 to 200, you know,
Yeah,
so.
a little
the
relative, yeah.
Percentages, yeah, are different. So, but they're becoming the experts. It's a point in time, but they're gonna be the experts on this. So I'm comfortable with, you know, the 7 people coming up with the you know, recommendation the best they can.
And we could remove the word recommended and to just say to be within 10% vary or 10% range.
Well, but yeah, I mean, so you're saying it would, there are options that can fit in there.
All of the maps that they have are fit within that range for voter registration. And in fact, at least 2 of those maps fit within that range for census population as well. Because those were the maps that they directed us to get to fit within both.
So as I said, I'm comfortable with precinct lines. And the expertise of the 7 at this point, you know, because that's the starting point. And it's gonna just come back to us to be put on the ballot for the voters to think deeply into it.
So do we need a
all-
motion to change that wording?
I think so, just properly update the guidelines.
Okay, so you're talking about 4B.
Or B, and then the question is whether or not you want to remove the word recommended. And I want to change the word variance to range.
Okay, variance to range. Range, all right.
And then 5% to 10%, and then whether, and then you guys can.
Drop off recommended.
You can discuss, you could drop off recommended, so then it's a clear guidance, I think, if you take out the word recommended, it's a clear guidance that is
That is the fact we.
they want you guys want them to, you know, abide by that criteria.
So I can make the motion then, to update, 4B. Maps should be drawn to approximately equal population size to be within the 10% range between the largest and smallest districts.
I'm not gonna say. I will second it. Okay. So yeah, just taking that piece of it, been moved and seconded. Any other discussion?
I guess, you know, to get to that conclusion, I wanna say. I'm not comfortable with using. Voter registration data instead of total population data. I think that opens us up to legal risk. For starters, then I'm also not comfortable with choosing between breaking up precincts and having wide variances of size between districts. You know, I think that needs a little bit more analysis and thought before we make a decision on that. So those, you know, coming out of those 2 things, I can't support this motion.
Any other discussion? For the vote, Commissioner Dare,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang, no, and Chair will vote yes on it. So we're gonna keep existing precinct line, so there's no change there.
I mean, technically still just for transparency's sake, it does say each district as nearly as practicable, never say that word, shall utilize existing precinct lines. So there is still wiggle room there if they get there. I would like to have a much deeper conversation with Steve Dennison and Lee about what that would look like if we want to revisit that conversation at a later date.
Okay, well, so yeah, we've clarified the range. The committee can go do their work on Wednesday, and if we talk about this again, we will.
Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you.
At this time, item number 5, Treasury report. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, Bill Coon, Shutes County Treasurer. As I usually do, I'll talk a little bit about economic conditions and highlights out there. And there's a wealth of information to talk about. I'll try to keep it concise. You know, my lead item continues to be the ongoing government shutdown, which started on midnight, September 30th. So as of today, we are now in day 27 of the expiry of our continued resolution to fund our federal government. At this point, it is the second longest shutdown, only exceeded by the 35-day shutdown that occurred during President Trump's first term in office. Last Wednesday, the Senate voted, I believe, for the sixth time to pass the House-passed funding bill. I take that back. It was the 12th time that they had actually voted.
Resolution.
And Senate vote was 54-46, short of the 60 votes in favor of the measure needed to pass. And the biggest roadblock continues to be the expiring healthcare subsidies through the Affordable Care Act. And both parties have advanced potential legislation to pay approximately 730,000 federal workers that are deemed essential, but nothing has been approved yet. Active duty military personnel were paid last week after dipping into unused research and development funding so that we were able to get them paid. There are roughly 700,000 furloughed workers that are not being paid at this time. Most federal workers received their last paycheck on October 10th and are facing their first full missed paycheck at the end of the month. So that's coming up here as well. I think it's important to note that there's some key programs that will run out of funding or starting to run out of funding at the end of the month. And that includes SNAP, Head Start, WIC, and other nutrition services that are going to be running out of funding here at the end of the month. The annual, just as a reminder, the annual funding debate that we're into right now covers only about 1/4 of the federal government's $7 trillion budget. Other mandatory programs such as Social Security, Medicare, as well as payments on the nation's 37.5, almost $38 trillion debt. Matter of fact, I think we are up to 38 trillion now. As a reminder, non-essential government employees are furloughed until funding is passed. And essential workers include active duty military, federal law enforcement, homeland security, and transportation, among others. I did hear this morning that there was a private donor that is supposedly contributing $130 million towards paying our military personnel. So that should alleviate some of the pressure there if we're not able to get to an immediate resolution there. So that kind of covers it on the government shutdown. I also wanted to note that it is widely expected that the Federal Reserve will reduce its key overnight borrowing rate by 25 basis points this Wednesday, the 29th. And that's following a 25 basis point cut in September. Right now, the financial markets are estimating virtually 100% certainty. I mean, not certain, but
Never.
never say never.
99.9.
Yes, I think it is like 98 or 99% probability that
That's
they
this
will.
Tuesday, right before Halloween, that you're saying?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, there you go.
great.
Fed officials are balancing the competing goals of a deteriorating labor market versus still sticky inflation. And again, this decision will be made against a backdrop of unprecedented political pressures on the central bank, which typically operates without undue direct political influence. So we have to kind of weigh that in as well. I think the next item, did want to mention too, that the only remaining Fed meeting in 2025 is scheduled for December 9th and 10th. And right now, financial markets are pricing an additional 25 basis point cut into this meeting as well. Obviously, a lot of what happens in December is going to be predicated on how they vote on Wednesday, but they're really forecasting right now a total of 50 basis points in cuts between now and the end of the year. This is where it gets a little interesting. Headline CPI inflation increased by 0.3% in September, and year-over-year inflation increased to 3%, which was actually lower than expected, but still well above that target of 2%. As expected, most pressure was again felt in food and energy costs, so those continue to be drivers for higher inflationary rates. And it's ironic that the Bureau of Labor Statistics released this data last week because the Social Security Administration uses this as a benchmark for cost of living COLA adjustments and benefit checks for the coming year. And those are currently set at 2.8% for the coming year. Otherwise, the federal government has suspended all data compilation and reporting. So we've got a big gap in key economic indicator of reporting of those indicators right now. Really, a lot of the robust reporting stopped in September. So we're flying a little blind right now in terms of what the current statistics are revealing. It leads me right into my next comment, that the official September payroll report by the BLS was not released due to the government shutdown. In place of this, what they've done is they've done kind of a compilation of other related data, including ADP hiring data, which forecasted continuing weak job growth with an estimate of only 50,000 new jobs generated for the month of September. With this news, and again, we're guesstimating a little bit, but the overall unemployment rate is expected to remain at 4.3%. Another index that I typically look at and is widely used by economists is the Producer Price Index. The PPI, which was also scheduled for release on October 16th, that was not released. So that data is currently not available as well. And that's basically the pricing on the manufacturing side of things. So not retail pricing, but wholesale and manufacturing pricing. On last Friday, President Trump announced that he was cutting off all trade discussions with Canada over the use of a 1987 radio address that appears to have been using selective audio and appears to misrepresent a former president's view on tariffs. So Canada, as a reminder, is the second largest trading partner with the US, importing roughly $412 billion worth of goods in 2024.
I saw that. It got my attention. I'm like, oh, what's that? And it says sponsored by Ontario. I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah, that stirred things up a little bit. And then also over the weekend, and actually further communicated today, is it appears that US and China are closing in on a trade agreement. The basic framework of a trade agreement that is just prior to joint meetings scheduled in Asia for later this week.
On Thursday.
And the markets did respond positively to that news too. So one hand, we're moving against having formal trade agreements in place with Canada, but on the other hand, I think we're getting closer on China. So we'll wait and see on that. But hopefully there'll be more news that'll be announced by the end of the week.
And when you go to the World Series, you must be prepared to play the game. You don't just win on your laurels. So anyway,
Yeah,
they won the second game. Interesting.
more to come there. And I will state that we still have this kind of backdrop of the Supreme Court not having issued a final ruling on the legality of these tariffs, and not expected to do that until really late in 2025 or early 2026. So that will be heard by the Supreme Court, but we're not there yet. So
But the fact that our country ran on tariffs until 1910, when World War I was happening, the Great War, I did find that fascinating in history.
yeah,
Yeah, like we weren't all taxed. Wasn't this a temporary thing? Yes. Temporarily going on for over 100 years now.
yeah, almost 100 years.
Well, no, it is.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, over 100 years. So
Yes.
anyway, more to come on that. And I would, just in general, I mean, the news is changing almost hourly. And we're still getting some fairly wild swings in financial markets as a result of that, because a lot of the news that's coming out recently is pretty dramatic. It's either a wide swing one way or the other. So, and it was as a result of that, obviously it's having an impact on interest rates, et cetera. So we've got to kind of stay on top of that. Speaking of which, the most recent bellwether 10-year US Treasury yield is at 4.06. So over the last month, we've had some fairly good swings in that rate, but it's basically been at the same level for the last month. And this is important as most long-term mortgage rates are priced based on this index. I have also over the last few months, I've been tracking the consumer confidence index, which dipped to 94.2 in September, which was down from August revised 97.4. And this is driven by continued concerns regarding future job availability and concerns over tariff impacts on pricing. So surprise, surprise. Those are the two kind of major economic indicators out there that are moving markets right now.
But what are they expecting the GDP to be?
Excuse me?
The GDP for this quarter, you know, I was hearing like 3.8% or something, so somebody must be doing something right and
Yeah.
the. Earnings numbers, I mean, I haven't seen today's, but what I've been watching have actually been. Better than I could have imagined.
And I think that has been a surprise to the upside is the GDP numbers.
Yeah.
So I'll continue to track that and kind of see where we land at the end of the year. But, you know, in spite of all this, the economy is still chugging along at a fairly decent rate, but without job growth. And I think that's the real key indicator there is we're not creating the jobs. So
But then again-
with efficiency,
We have JTS Shavings in Redmond. That company's been there forever. They don't have truckers to deliver their shavings all over the country. No truckers are. Yeah, I just got asked to take another load of shavings because they only have so much acreage in order to store them, and so. People aren't working.
well, and that's being impacted by fuel costs and availability
Fuel's
of
down.
drivers.
Gas was under $60. And, you know, if you look at, what the output is now in America, the output of gas is really amazing. You know, barrels, it's, what is it, like 6 million or something a day? I mean, it's a huge number.
Or oil production.
Yeah, oil
Domestic oil
production is
production.
way up, and their perfect number is, the range is 65 to 80. Just listened to somebody from Chevron this morning early, and so, you know, gas did go under that, but, you know, why don't we have any truckers to, you know, out there working?
I'm not sure I can comment on that.
I mean, but it's.
I think I'm gonna
it's
stay out of that.
to- You know, this is a company that's been in Central Oregon forever, and they're being incredibly stymied with their company's output. So
Yeah.
Bill, find some truckers for them, please.
See what you can do about that.
Not sure I can
Yeah.
match. Although monitoring the data is really
Yeah.
what I can do. So kind of rolling into housing start. So again, we do not have current housing start data because of a lack of any reporting at the national level. But at the regional level, I can provide data on several markets within Deschutes County. The September Bend single-family residential market showed a median sales price that dipped to $713,000, which was down from $769,000 in August. With 180 sales for the months of September, 41 of these sales were above $1 million and 56 of these were cash sales. So again, out of those total sales, we're still seeing a lot of those being driven by cash purchases, which are being done independent of what mortgage rates are doing. Inventory levels have actually dropped a little bit to a 4-month supply of homes currently listed with 31 days listing for sold properties. And of note, Bend area single family home building permits increased to 45, which was up slightly from 42 in August. The Redmond statistics saw a stable median price of $530,000 in September, which was basically flat with August. It was up slightly. Redmond area permits actually plummeted to 6 in September, down from 19 in the prior month. And sales in the Redmond area, because it's considered to be affordable housing here in Deschutes County, remain fairly strong.
So how many
But-
sales then?
Excuse me.
Did you pick up how many sales then in Redmond?
I didn't actually write that number down.
Okay, but it was strong.
Yeah. Sales have actually been strong in Redmond. Yeah. Looking at some other markets within the county, Sisters, 690,000 median sales price on 14 sales. Sun River, a little bit of an anomaly, but 946,000. Median sales price on 16 sales, and Lapine was 357,000 on 8 sales. And then I also thought it's timely, I think, to report on the current multifamily rental market in Deschutes County, which is something that we've been tracking. And again, these statistics combine both Bend and Redmond as the 2 largest areas in Deschutes County. And late last week, I received the Q3 2025 CoStar report that showed a combined vacancy rate of 11.1%. And that compared to 11.3% for the prior quarter. So the vacancy factor has been up now over, I believe, about a year.
Oh, yeah, it's been over a year.
And over the past year, a total of 920 new units were delivered to this market, while 610 units were rented. So that's also driving up that vacancy factor. what's telling is when we dive into the details,
But this is with Redmond too.
it's combined,
Because
Bend and
see, it
Redmond.
used to not be with.
It used to
Redmond,
be just Bend and they've actually combined those two markets
But it's
because they really.
really high then, if it's with Redmond then, cause
Yeah.
normally there isn't much to rent in Redmond, from what I've been told.
Yeah.
I know the Nova apartments are all full. Those.
Well, and I'll tell you, some of the details. So 4 and 5 star properties, which are kind of at the top end of the scale. And I would say, think Jackstraw as a 5-star type property. Have an 18.4% vacancy rate and average asking rents of over $2,000 a month. While 1 and 2 star units, and these are typically older properties that are, a lot of them are family owned and managed. Have a 6.3% vacancy, which was a much lower asking rate of $1,383 a month. So that's where the demand is, and not surprisingly, those are affordable units that are available out there right now.
And with even 9, I mean. For the vacancy rate to stay at around 11%, that's interesting, but. For it to stay at 11% with 900 plus units coming on the market. Yeah, that's.
There's an absorption issue
Yeah,
right now, and they expect to
there's a
actually
substantial
work
amount.
through that number. And I think a lot of it goes back to inbound migration. You commented earlier about population growth in Deschutes County. And right now, the latest numbers that I've seen, it's roughly 0.5%. So it is positive population growth as compared to Washington County, which is experiencing negative.
A lot, yes.
Yeah, so there's still people moving into the area, and that's helping to drive some of the demand for housing. But the big issue is, well, 2 things. So there's very limited new construction in the pipeline right now. They're estimating that they're only going to be bringing 156 new units to the market in 2026. And that's primarily concentrated in 1 development in Redmond that's currently on the drawing board. So high interest rates, construction costs, et cetera, are having an impact on future development. So that's going to obviously slow down. And the other thing that we're dealing with right now is that with an average rent of over $1,800 a month, and that's across all properties, we have the highest rental rates in the state of Oregon in Bend and Redmond right now. So that's
You mean the price?
the price. Yeah.
But the fact that, I believe when they first brought in Redmond to bring that number down, I thought it went down to like 8% or something when it was Bend and Redmond.
Yeah, this was over a year ago though.
I know,
This has
but
been
they
for a long
combined
time.
them, and now
Yeah.
it's up to
And
11.
there was a tremendous amount of inventory that came online, and these were high-end properties. And what's interesting about that is that the higher-end properties are typically owned by regional or national developers, and they can technically afford to be patient. So they're trying to maintain their rental rates, and they're willing to sacrifice some absorption as a result of that. So if they have to technically carry these properties for a little while to get their rates, they're willing to do that. Smaller properties, local and regional developers typically do not have that luxury. So we're seeing some dynamics in the rental market right now that be interesting to see how it plays out over the next few quarters. Anything else on the economic side? If not, I'll roll into my treasurer's quarter.
So that was ending 9/30? That was the 3rd quarter then?
What
Ending
was that?
September, you were ending September 30th then, so that's getting the numbers pretty good.
Yeah, those are current numbers.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, they typically generate the numbers about 20 days or so after quarter end. But when a certain commissioner reached out to me last week to see if
To
the
remind you.
numbers might be available,
See, I wonder who that could be.
literally I requested and I got them that same day. So
That's, tell them thank you. I
Yeah,
mean, I think it's really.
I do,
important to know.
it's informative. I think it gives us some ideas to what's happening in that particular segment in the market. So for the September treasurer's report, the portfolio balance was 303 million at month end, which was a slight increase of 930,000 from August and an increase of 23.4 million from last year. Net investment earnings were $1,005,000 for the month, which was 17.7 thousand lower than last month's earnings, but 192, almost 193,000 higher than a year ago. We are starting to see the impact of overall reductions in our portfolio balance on interest earnings. as the balance goes down, and then we will be starting to see, I think, the portfolio yield actually starting to go back down right now. Right now, it's basically flattening out. All portfolio category balances are well within policy guidelines. The LGIP rate remained at 4.6 for the month, which has been flat since, I believe, March or earlier this year. And the FIB rate remained at 4.5% through month end, although we were notified that that rate was dropping to 3.95% on October 1st. And that was in conjunction with the Fed funds cut that occurred in September. So I would imagine that if there is another cut here, that we will likely see another rate reduction there as well. The LGIP rate has surprisingly stayed as high as it is, but I believe that there's a lot of pressure now to start seeing that rate go down as well. Overall portfolio yields dipped slightly to 4.19%, down from 4.22% for the prior month. I did have an opportunity during the month. I was able to reinvest another $8 million in funding. And what I'm doing right now is concentrating my efforts on matching expected debt servicing needs in May of each year, May of 26, 27, and 28. So I'm kind of building some funds into our redemption schedule to basically match fund our debt servicing. And the 5-year maturity distribution schedule reflects these recent investments made over the next 3 years. And I think I will state that with recent investment activity, the portfolio now has a weighted term to maturity of 1.08 years, with a maximum maturity standing of slightly less than 3 years now. That maximum maturity will actually go back up here over the next few months as I start to look at investing tax receipts, as they start coming back into the county. Any questions regarding this report?
Oh, I want to come. Go ahead.
Looking at the 24-month historic investment returns, our blue line, has climbed over the last few years, as we've been able to take advantage of, favorable investment opportunities, basically. If in the next couple of years, those decline, if LGIP goes down, if the treasury goes down, if corporate bond rates go down. I guess this probably ties to the kind of average maturity of
And I'll
what
give
we're
you-
holding, but
Yeah.
I mean, we could, if we see those other colored lines drop below our blue, where our blue line is right now, we'll still have a couple of, some good months before we start to taper off.
We have a pretty decent runway if you're looking at average yield, portfolio yield, because we have a good percentage of investments that have been made over the last several years that are yielding over 4%.
Right.
And so we do hold the maturity, so we're not trading anything. So those investments will run off over time. Recent investment activity, the 2-year rate last week actually dipped below 3.5%.
Yeah.
So starting to see the shorter term end of the yield curve go down. So we're losing on the really short end of the curve. We still have an inverted yield curve, but that 2 to 3 year, kind of the middle of yield curve in our investing is actually coming down fairly dramatically. It has over the last few months. Rates have dropped 20 to 30 basis points in those 2 to 3 year investments. And that's typically what we're investing in as opportunities come up. I'm investing to kind of push out that 3-year investment ladder. So the short answer to your question is that I believe that rates will remain fairly high, but we're going to start to see our average yield start to drop off a little bit. But the other indexes will also be dropping off as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we do, and I reported on this last month, that we got the bulk of those extremely low rates that have been holding down our average portfolio yield. Those are pretty much out of the portfolio now. Last month, when that $18 million level of redemptions matured, and they were all sub 1% yields. So those are completely out of the portfolio now.
we're trading them for some of that modest return stuff in the 2 to 3 year.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Great job. Your line looks like it's going the right way.
Finance report for September 2025. The rest of the numbers.
That's right. Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Robert Tintle, Chief Financial Officer. So here today presenting on the finance report for September 2025. Again, these are unaudited numbers for the first quarter. So we're first milestone of the fiscal year in that. So on the first page memorandum that you have in front of you on page 69, I just want to draw attention for a moment to the financial dashboard, the picture at the bottom. You'll see on the first column, first row, the requirements, 8.7 million. We're at 17.6% of the budget. First quarter, we should be at 25%, so our expenditures are under. But I really want to highlight the next one under resources, and you'll see we're only at 5%. And again, this is for the general fund, so just a reminder, we are starting to collect property taxes now. So you will see this probably starting in the next month. You'll see that green bar will start drastically changing since we receive 92% of our budgeted funds by November. So that the pictorial graph, that picture there, that'll change drastically within the next month. But otherwise, our revenues year to date in the general fund, and this is again as of September, was 2.5 million, or about 5% of budget. Last year it was 4.2 million, or 8.7% of budget at this time. But we're like I said, we're on target, expecting to be on target. And I'll talk more about the general fund revenues when we get to the detailed page. Expenses are similar to last year at 8.7 million. Last year was 8.9, and we're about 17.6, or compared to 18% of the budget last year. So very comparable to where we were last year. Next page, 70 in your packet, is the FTE position control summary. So overall, the total FTE for the county did increase by 1.2 FTE. And it is noted there at the bottom, the changes for their 1.0 FTE increase in community development, and then a 0.2 FTE decrease for the district attorney's office. Just a few numbers to highlight on this page. The sheriff's office, you'll see, is staying about the last couple of months, 34.50. So they're staying around that 30, below 35 number. Again, it was a milestone when they reached below 40 unfilled positions. And so they've been staying within that in this fiscal year. Fair and Expo have 6 FTE at the moment, but my understanding is interviews will be happening for that position. And so hopefully that will find a director through that. HR on the ISF near the bottom has 3 FTE. And I'm highlighting these because they have higher percentages on some. But that number has changed since they have recently filled a couple positions. So that number should be going down by the time we get to some of the next reports there. So progress being made on some of those areas. Next page, 71. The overtime and total personnel cost summary. Currently, as of September 30th, as you would anticipate within the first quarter, no fund is over budget in total personnel costs as of September 30th. There are a couple of funds that are projected to be over by the end of the year, and that would be, make sure I got the right line there, CDD and the annual fair. But of course, we know we won't actually go over budget. We'll have a budget adjustment before then. We'll do some adjustments, but just as they're doing their projections, they're made aware of that. So we'll continue to monitor those and make a budget adjustment as warranted. And again, there's only 2 small funds, small amounts that have increased overtime from what their budget is. But overall, our budgeted overtime is at 3.6 million, and so far this quarter, for the first quarter, we've only spent 853,000, almost 854. So the most of that's at the sheriff's office, most of the overtime, and their percentage, they've spent 592,000 in overtime so far, and that's about 25%. So since we're in the first quarter, that's about on average for what we're going by there, assuming overtime was spread evenly across the year. Of course, we know it's not, but that's where we're at.
That was actually $216,000 worth of more overtime for just that for the month of September. I wonder what that is attributed to. I mean, maybe that there's shortage, you know, the fact that they're still missing 34 people.
Although that is, we'd have to talk with them on the, you know, on
Because
the
I mean,
details.
the prior month was the fair and the fire. So I mean, I know they had tons of overtime there, but I'm trying to think what happened in September.
Yeah, well, and then typically they do have ongoing overtime.
Right.
too. So,
I know.
hey, page 76 is the general fund in your package, and it's fund 001. So a few things on this to report is, and you probably saw the announcement, the email from Scott Linkton, our county assessor. He released the assessed value numbers for this current tax sharing fiscal year that we're in. So when we had budgeted in this current year's budget for the general fund, we budgeted an assessed value increase of 4.58%. It actually came in at 4.9%. The assessed value for the general fund of 5.4. So in summary, we are anticipating that we'll receive about 861,000 additional in the general fund from what the budget was, which will be good because it'll help offset some of the anticipated expenditures that may be coming the way in the general fund as well.
Yeah, I had the privilege of sitting by someone who was really unhappy with their property tax bills. Really unhappy, and he was like talking about, do I move my business next door, you know, to Crook County or to Jefferson County? So, yeah. I told him, well, a lot of people don't use their calculator when they vote for bond issues. And that affects everybody.
Yep, okay. So, and just so as a reminder, oh, sorry, did you have a question?
No, I'm just starting to look anxiously at the clock. I have to leave at 3:30 for a coordinated homeless response office meeting, so. I don't know how long our executive session items are gonna take, but.
Okay, well, let's just roll. Yeah,
Does it seem like it's gonna work? It's all gonna fit?
I mean, we could take a break, go into executive session and come back to this. The executive session on labor, on litigation is not happening, right?
Yes, correct.
So just labor and real property.
And actually, I think I could probably get through in about 5 minutes if you want. The good news is, just starting with that, looking at the first quarter, we're on trend overall. So most of these funds are on target. So I'll just, the ones that are just flowing through, I'll skip through those pages there. General fund, mostly it was about the tax. And again, we're starting tax payments, send out over 113,000 statements. That's why our lobby is starting to get busy now and all the noise in there. And just as a reminder, about 85% of people pay their property taxes by the November 15th deadline. 85% on average.
Pay in full
Yeah.
for the 3%.
Correct. And then the rest are spread out between the May and the February dates. Next page, TLT fund, page 78. This is, we've been through the first 3 quarters, or the first 3 months, excuse me. So room tax revenue is up 4.4% from fiscal year 25. Since we budget conservatively, it's up 6.1%. So we did include in the top line lodging taxes. We're going to be over at this point early in the year estimate of about $600,000 more than we budgeted, which is better to be over budget than under budget. Basically based on our conservative approach. Not a lot of change in some of these. I do want to point out page 82 in your packet.
Oh, yes, that was new.
This is a brand new report.
Thank you
So-
very much.
You'll notice
No, it's
that.
about time, honestly.
Yeah, and it is a major fund now. It is a major part of it. Before it was rolled up in the other category, but since we talk about it and it is a large amount, so we did include it new this month as a separate report. So this is the Oregon Health Plan Capital Reserves Fund 270. You'll notice
That's what I wrote.
total fund balance. Yeah, the budget was 36 million. Today actuals were at 39 million. They expect to be about 40 million by the end of the year. So yeah, so we won't have to specifically report out those numbers. You won't have to write them down. This report will be included in it.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, you're welcome. I made some comments on the public health funds. There were some small adjustments, not major at this time. Of course, health services obviously is still monitoring the federal situation. Again, these are numbers through September, so the actuals through September. are going well. With some adjustments there. Again, I won't get into the details this year. Adult Parole and Probation Fund 355, page 89. The last month, their total fund balance at the end was only 800,000, so they increased about $500,000 in their total fund balance, but that's mostly due to vacancy savings, because now this quarter they finally recorded some vacancy, or they recorded vacancy savings, so that's really what affected it there.
Oh, God.
And actually, near the end, we're gonna flip to the second to the last.
Oh, I was wondering,
Yeah.
Fund 615, was this downgrade of the fair events revenue? It was downgraded over $500,000. What was that? Do you have any idea why we downgraded that so much?
That was just based on,
Contracts?
the projection, the projections that they have. We'd have to look at that. It's mostly the event revenue. Yeah, that's where you'll see that 500,000, but it wasn't a change from last month. It's similar to what they had been reported already as far as coming in under their budgeted estimates. Page 100, Health Benefits Fund 675. This is another good news. So right now, if you look at the first set of columns, fiscal year 25, we ended at $11.8 million. Since this was ran as of September 30th, since that time, we've actually received $300,000 additional of a rebate, prescription rebate. So we are anticipating that number to go to 12.1 by the end of fiscal year, which will be the carryover to this new year. So ending much better than what we anticipated, which is always a good thing because we do budget conservatively.
And then sorry, but back to page 95, I noticed that
Okay.
the fair thinks they're gonna collect another $37,000 there, for fair sponsorship. I mean, that's gonna really come in, Bill? Yes. Okay.
That's what I've heard.
The fair was, what, August 1st?
Yeah. There's been some delayed collections there, but we do expect that those funds to continue.
Okay. We haven't had to write anything off yet.
Yeah, and that is typical, and that's why they produce this report on the year-to-date
Yeah.
basis. Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yep. So that was the end of the report, 9/11, the last page, 101. Had an increase of 700,000, but again, they reported their vacancy savings, so that's the change from last month as well. But again, overall, all things are good for the first quarter. And again, the addition of the general fund due to the new assessed value.
Thanks for accelerating.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to executive session.
The Deschutes County Board of Commissioners will now convene an executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660. They'll meet as the governing body of Deschutes County 911 to discuss matters under ORS 192.6602 subsection D involving labor negotiations, and they will also convene as the governing body of Deschutes County pursuant to ORS 192.6602E to discuss real property negotiations. Designated staff and the media are allowed to remain during the executive session. However, the media may only report that the board met in executive session and the identified basis for meeting an executive session. Recording devices are not permitted. No final decisions will be made. And at the conclusion, we'll open the door and ask the audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're out of executive session. Please. Is there anything else for this meeting?
One item, Wednesday on consent was the Oregon Beverage Service Contract that with Fair and Expo Center for the sale and distribution of alcohol. We're gonna pull that item because there were some audit recommendations and made some suggestions on next time you contract with them.
It needs to be
Closing the
cleaned
loop.
up.
Good.
So we won't be able to clean all of it up,
Yeah.
but we wanna get towards it. So we'll pull that on Wednesday.
Good.
What number is that? Oh, it's
It's the
not,
very first.
okay, consent, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.
Oh, we're talking to